Greetings and welcome to the Conversations at Noon on the Connecticut Freedom Trail. I'm Tammy Denease. Today is a special day. It is our year in review where I will sit with the coordinator and hopefully the chairman of the Connecticut Freedom Trail today. And we're going to do a review of all of the exciting things that happened this past year on the trail. Before we get started, let's do a little housekeeping. If you have any questions or comments, please feel free to put them in the comment section on whatever social media platform you're watching, and we will do our best to get to them all. Now, and as you know, in August of 1995, the Connecticut Freedom Trail was established by the General Assembly to tell the story of the struggle for freedom of the African and Black communities. And a year later, September 1996, it officially opened with 50 towns with about 30 sites. And today we are in approximately 70 towns with upwards of 170 sites. And the eventual goal is to have one site in at least all of the 169 municipalities. So we are growing. We've added about 13 sites this year, and we're going to get into that. And we're ready to go. So please join me, Todd Levine, on screen, and let's get this party started.
Hi, everyone. My name is Todd Levine. I'm an architectural historian for State Historic Preservation Office and DECD, and I'm the coordinator for the Connecticut Freedom Trail and have been doing this with the state for about 10 years now. So, yeah, we're really excited. This has been a great year for the Connecticut Freedom Trail. Tammy went over a little bit, and we're going to show you guys a slideshow of some of the highlights from this year. And then we're going to have a little discussion on some of those highlights, go a little deeper so that we can share with you guys what we've learned through this process. And it helps inform us for next year and the years to come as we continue to grow the Freedom Trail. You know, our goal is ultimately for everybody in the state of Connecticut to know how important the stories of the Freedom Trail are and how it can help inspire them to do great things. So thank you, Tammy.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, let's start with our slideshow and let's get it started. The year in review for 2023. It is a memorable one. We started off, we're going to start not at the beginning of the year. We're going to actually start where we did our very first gathering. It is called Gathering of the Sites. And it was our very first one, and how pivotal and poignant that it was that we did it aboard the Amistad scooter. And the Amistad gathering is where the gathering of sites is where all of the public sites of the Freedom Trail come together and they get to associate, socialize, and have fun and not just do work. We're working hard to get the homeowners to come out for the next one because they are just as important to the Freedom Trail if their home is on the site. So we're looking forward to adding homeowners to the next gathering of the sites, which will be at the Hempstead Houses in New London. Todd, you remember that day? That was a party.
It was. It was a great time. And, you know, one of the goals here is we spend a lot of time, you know, especially the sites that are open to the public working on programming, and the story and setting up exhibits. And we don't have a lot of time for all of us to get together and really network, get excited for each other, and think about how better to do what we do. Again, these stories are so important to be told. And we're not, sometimes, especially here in Connecticut, everybody ends up there in their little silo. They end up, their part of the story is what, they're really concentrated on. But, the Connecticut Freedom Trail sites are so interconnected. So many of these sites cross each other and have, multiple sites, and multiple stories are all so connected. And it was so great to have everybody together to talk about that. Everybody ends up there in their little silo.
Exactly. I am having technical difficulties over here, so Todd, please keep going until I can get this straight. Thank you.
All right, great. So anyway, so we had all the new sites that we added this year were a part of the gathering of the sites. And again, this is something that we're going to do annually.
Yes.
And we hope to eventually have more and more. We have 170 sites across the state. I think we had, I'm not sure how many people we had at the Amistad vessel. And again, thanks to Paula for hosting us from Discover Amistad. But it was a great time. And again, what's important is to connect with the folks that we're working with kind of on a daily basis.
Yeah, a good portion of the public sites were represented that day. So I think we had close to about 60 people that came out to support the program, and we had a wonderful time. The drumming, just the atmosphere itself, it was so energized and it was so full of life. So great time there. Looking forward to our next upcoming gathering of the sites, which will be in August of 24. Can you believe it? 2024.
Yep, right around the corner. And, we're going to do one every year. We're going to travel across the state. So we're going to make sure that we're represented in not, just central Connecticut or the easy to get to places. We started in New Haven at Long Wharf. We'll be in New London next year. And then we'll continue to have, we'll be hosted by our sites, our Freedom Trail sites. So we'll hit all corners of the state of Connecticut as we continue.
Exactly. And it will be just as energized no matter where we are in the state. Awesome. Let's go to the next slide. More drumming and more fun. This gentleman here, and I apologize, I cannot remember his name. He is a staple in New Haven. He got the party going with the drumming, and he's an excellent drummer. We had a wonderful chef, Chef Jocelyn. Her food was really good. Everybody raved about it. So she added the final touch to make the scenario what it needed to be. The food, the dancing, the singing, the drumming. It was just a wonderful time. Then we also have where the Lieutenant Governor for September, which is Freedom Trail Month. She wanted to make sure we highlighted that the Freedom Trail was highlighted so that people would understand the importance of it. And she chose the Mary and Eliza Freeman Center in Bridgeport. That was an awesome day. The whole community, a good portion of the community came out to support it. And it was really great to be able to have her express why she felt the Freedom Trail as well as this site was so important.
Yeah, Lieutenant Governor Bicewicz was great. She reached out to us. She'd actually reached out to us based on being at the LOB for, I think, a museum day is when her chief of staff had met you. But she recognized how important the stories of the Freedom Trail were, and she wanted to help us get the word out. So we had TV, we had NBC, I think
Channel 8.
Yeah, Channel 8, and I think 61 was there as well, plus the couple locals. And this site is, the site that the Mary and Eliza Freeman Community Center is housed, but it's not where the houses are. This is right downtown so that they can have a larger presence. And they've actually, Maisa Tisdale, their executive director, helped get this beautiful mural put up. And it was great. We had representation from legislators, and obviously the Lieutenant Governor was there. And, when the Freedom Trail was launched in 1995, we had a lot of attention. Like anytime there was a new site added, there was TV there. We always had good publicity, good, always there was good, good spotlights on the work that we had done. But over the last 10 or 15 years, that excitement has waned a little bit. And it's really exciting now especially the last couple of years, we've been getting that excitement back up.
Yes.
And the lieutenant governor had recognized this. And this is not even the only thing she did with us in September, Connecticut Freedom Trail Month.
No, we'll see a little later in the slides some of the other things that she helped us with. It's really great to get that support from the representatives to show how important the Connecticut Freedom Trail and its narratives really are for the state.
Yeah, and also, shout out to the artist, and I'm not remembering her name, so forgive me. But the murals that you see here behind us, especially in the lower right-hand corner, when you can see the whole thing of Mary and Eliza Freeman, is powerful, and that's kind of a theme that we're moving a little bit more into, in the coming years. Really started this year with this one being complete, but there are some other things that we'll get to in a little while about the importance and the power of art when it comes to telling the stories of the Connecticut Freedom Trail.
Yeah, exactly. And a mural was wonderfully done. It is a beautiful thing. The pictures do not do it justice. When you're there in person, it gives you the sense of the resiliency and the power of these two particular women who were ahead of their time. They were two Black sisters who were millionaires, and they were real estate moguls, and they did a lot for their community. And that's why it's so important that their story is upheld and told. So thank you, Lieutenant Bicewicz. All right, let's move to our next one. This is the latest addition to the Freedom Trail, the Ruby and Calvin Fletcher African American History Museum in Stratford. It was great to be able to meet Mr. Jeffrey Fletcher, and Senator Blumenthal was there. This was a very special day because when we were setting this up for the press release in the media, Senator Blumenthal's office asked, would this be the perfect time to give Mr. Fletcher the senator's citation? And I told him it would be the perfect time. So he had no idea what was happening that day. He thought he was just getting the flag and the plaque. And when he received his citation, it was a beautiful sight to see, because he tried to hold his emotions in, but you could see he was very touched by that. And it was really important that it happened at that moment, because not only receiving the flag and the plaque puts him onto the Freedom Trail, but it also spoke to his hard work. It took him 15 years to get the first African American museum in Connecticut open. And at this point, the museum had been open for 2 years. And you see here the representatives from Stratford, who has been very supportive in helping keep this museum not only getting it open, but to give it the exposure that it deserves.
Yeah, it's a great story. His parents, Jeffrey's parents, Ruth and Calvin, had begun collecting artifacts just for fun. And then they started having, through the years, really putting together a series of significant artifacts. So, when Jeff opened up the museum, he wanted to tell the story not just about, particularly, they had come across, chains that were used by slave folks. He didn't want to just tell the story that focuses on just the bad. His museum tells the entire story. It starts in Africa. It goes through certainly,
the Middle Passage,
and enslaved times, but also continues up until today.
Yes.
So, it's a story. It's a museum that not only teaches, but also, again, with what we want to do with the Connecticut Freedom Trail, is bring inspiration. And that's one of the really great things that the Fletcher Museum does, is when you walk out of there, you're inspired.
Yeah. Yeah. What I appreciate, his mom had collected 450 artifacts or belongings, and he is up to 12,000 plus artifacts. So the museum has a lot to tell, is very engaging. And like you said, it's an inspiration. It speaks to the resilience. And I love the fact that it starts in Africa. It speaks of the family. It speaks of how the community were together before the interruption of the history. So I like to tell people, slavery is not our history. It interrupted our history. And this museum takes you back to the beginning before that interruption happened. So a great addition to the Freedom Trail. Welcome, Mr. Fletcher and the museum. Next, let's see here. We had, now here again is where Lieutenant Vicevich came into play. She did an Amistad panel, and we had a great group of people there. We have Mariana Garcia, Andre Kitt, yourself. We have Sally Whipple, the director of the Old State House Museum. Amina Merritt, who is one of the descendants of Venture Smith. We have Cindy Riccio. She's the executive, she's the director of education at the New Haven Museum. Myself, and then we have Charles Warner Jr. That day was an awesome day because we got to sit and discuss and talk about the brilliance and the importance of the Amistad story. We got to take it and look at it from a different point of view. So that day was another day, another milestone.
Yeah, and the Old State House, of course, was where the story of the Amistad happened. Partially, that's the courthouse,
Yeah.
where they tried, for the discussion of freedom of all men created equal. Are we all, born, to be free? So, having this discussion continued, 150 years later or whatever, 175 years later from the 1839 beginning of the story of the Amistad to now, to have that story continue was pretty powerful. And of course, again, thanks to the Lieutenant Governor Bicewicz, who reached out to us to do this. She and her staff said, we want to continue to bring the spotlight to the Freedom Trail. These stories are important, and how can we help? And it was her idea to do a panel to really, have an opportunity for folks to have a little bit more of a long form discussion on why these places are important.
Exactly. And it is so important to note and understand that particular courtroom was very pivotal in history. It played a role in the Amistad captives getting their freedom, getting to tell that story and rooting them here in Connecticut. And it's another reason why it's so important that the Freedom Trail exists, because a lot of people nationally, let alone locally, aren't aware of these historical jewels that are right in front of them, and they don't understand the what's the word I want to use, the in-depthness of how far it goes, that it's not just the surface, because most people think of the legal case or they think of the movie, but in reality it has so many more tentacles that reach down to the day, that speaks to resiliency and the importance of freedom and humanity. So very important story. Again, thank you, Lieutenant Governor. Over here we have, let's go to our comments. We have Andre Kitt. He said he had a wonderful time at the gathering of the sites. Yes, we did, sir. We had a wonderful, wonderful time. And he also says that the African American Museum in Stratford is perfect and a welcome addition to the Connecticut Freedom Trail. Thank you, Jeffrey Fletcher. Thank you, Andre, for chiming in. We appreciate that. Anything else you want to speak on this about, Todd?
Yeah, only just that, the story of the Amistad is one of the most important stories of Connecticut and the United States, and a big part of the abolitionist movement. And enough, too many people in Connecticut don't know about it.
Exactly.
Certainly, when we were doing a project, maybe 5 or 6 years ago, we did a survey to kids to see if they had known about the story of the Amistad. And, the kids in New Haven, because of New Haven's presence and New Haven's part of being in the story of the Amistad, New Haven kids knew probably more than any other municipality, but including Hartford. So I think now with the move to have Common Core include local African-American history, these are the opportunities that we have to teach our young ones about the importance of the Connecticut Freedom Trail stories to the history of not only Connecticut, but to the nation.
Yeah, and actually globally, because it is a global story. When the Queen of Spain gets involved, that definitely made it a more international battle. And they were strong enough and resilient enough to stand up to some of the most powerful people of that time. So that's a very important story and a very important narrative to be known. Thanks. Let's move on to the next one. This one is very, oh my goodness, this is very touching. When I was an educator at the Connecticut Historical Society many moons ago, I had heard about the story of the man Fortune, how he supposedly died in the river and his enslaver boiled his bones. But the story doesn't end there. It's a 200-year saga, 200+ year saga of this man not getting the respect that he deserved in life, and he definitely didn't get it in death until 2013. His bones had been on display and then kept in the basement of the Mattock Museum. Through the tireless efforts of Mr. John Mills, as well as Martin from the Riverside Cemetery, and a couple of others, they had been trying to get him recognized the way he deserved to be recognized. And so we finally got the man Fortune, his gravesite, onto the Freedom Trail so that his story will never be forgotten, but also to give further dignity and respect to a human being who was not respected in life and for over 200 years, not even in death. So this was a very important day.
Yeah, and John Mills was instrumental in bringing this to our attention. I mean, we had known about the Mattock Museum. They smartly recognized internally that having the bones of a formerly enslaved person as an exhibit was probably not the way to go, and then they had put it away. And John Mills had doing his own research had kind of come across the man Fortune story. And finally rested at the Riverside Cemetery in 2013, as you noted. It wasn't until August of this year that we added the story of Fortune to the Freedom Trail, and now we'll know. Folks will be able to learn about this story and how important it is. And one of the things too, and I don't know if we have a slide for Waterbury.
No, we don't have that. No, we do not.
So one of the things that we have going on, launched this year, the actual mural probably won't be done till next year. I'm sure it won't be done till next year, in fact.
Yeah.
But, we've partnered, Connecticut Freedom Trail has partnered with John Mills' organization.
Alex Breon Corporation.
Yep. And along with the City of Waterbury, Rise Up for Arts organization, as well as a number, the NAACP and a number of Waterbury arts organizations to do a large scale mural of Fortune in Waterbury, where it's going to be, 40 feet high. We're working now with the artists and Rise Up to determine where we're going to put the actual mural and then design it and get it, have artists, put it up, sometime next year. But it's really exciting to partner with organizations that really want to see, the stories of the Freedom Trail writ large. So, having these murals are going to be really important because, again, if you're driving by and you see it, all of a sudden you want to learn more.
Exactly.
You're not going to learn more about, Fortune, by going through the Riverside Cemetery. You'll see a plaque, there'll be a flag, but you won't really know about it. But when you see that large scale mural, on Main Street or wherever it's going to be in Waterbury, you're going to want to learn more about the man Fortune.
Exactly. And I also want to make sure we acknowledge the NAACP's role in getting his remains buried. Miss Maxine Watts and the other leadership at the NAACP back in 2013. So thank y'all so very much for keeping that fight going to get this man the respect that he deserves. So thank you. Let's move on. That particular day was a beautiful day. It rained, but then it stopped raining and it was just drizzling. And then it just stopped in time enough for us to do this presentation and to be able to acknowledge this. So this is another one of those poignant moments on the Freedom Trail where, as the outreach director going into the community, I get to meet all of these everyday heroes that we don't get to see or acknowledge on a regular basis. So thank you so very much, everyone. Here is another special occasion regarding descendants. Reverend James W.C. Pennington, his descendants were present at the time that Yale University was honoring him. And I got to speak with Miss Orasati. She's an author and a psychologist, and she will actually be one of our speakers in the new year, upcoming series for the new year. She's going to come and be on Conversations at Noon next year. But I was unable to be there in person, but they sent us the photos and she called me and she told me how wonderful the program was. By the time I found out about it, I was already promised to be elsewhere and I could not. I was across the state in Bridgeport and could not get there in time. But she made sure I knew about the event and made sure to let us know that the Freedom Trail was definitely welcome and she appreciated what we were doing. And she also has new information. So we'll learn a little bit more coming from a descendant of Mr. Pennington. And this is another reason why the Freedom Trail is so important, because we do have contact with different descendants of these giants, these historical giants. And it's so important to include their voices in their family's legacy. And this was one of those opportunities.
Yeah, and again, we have these connections of all these sites interconnecting with each other, and then to have descendants be able to bring their story to one site, it has the kind of domino effect of influencing the other sites and making sure that all the stories and the timelines match up. The scholarship of it all is supported when we have the connections to the descendants.
Yeah, exactly. And I just, again, can't stress how important that if you have a historical site, whether on the Freedom Trail or not, it is so important to have the voices of the descendants be included. Because it's one thing to want to tell that story, but it's another to tell that story correctly and from the right narrative and the right lens. So we really appreciate all of the descendants, and we're hoping that we will connect with more descendants as we continue to grow the Freedom Trail. Over here, we have some thank yous and acknowledgments. Paula Mann Agnew wants to thank Jeffrey Fletcher for his hard work and what he has done. Andre Kitt wants to thank Paula Agnew for hosting the gathering of the sites. And it was graciously aboard the Amistad. I can't speak enough about that day. Every time I think about it, I just remember the energy and the fun that was had by all and how everyone was connecting. And then John Mills said it was a wonderful day when we were at the Fortune's grave site. It was a wonderful and sovereign day that day. It really was. Let's move to the next slide. Now we have our conversations at noon, and we had a wonderful time this year. And this year, women had a great time on the Freedom Trail. And some of the topics that we had, we spoke with Nicole Thomas, who was a part of the New London Black Heritage Trail. We had Amina Merritt, who was a descendant of Venture Smith, Sally Whipple, the executive director of the old State House. We have Miss Paula Mann Agnew, where she spoke about what it was like to be one of a few Black women in the positions that she is in and how important it is to have that platform. And then we have Terry Wilson, who helped us to come to the knowledge of Private Leverett Holden. So this year was a great year, and it was the Amistad trilogy. It was all done under that. We had the Amistad Affair. We had, I can't read that tiny writing, but we had the Amistad with Paula and the resilience of it. And then we had the Ghosts of the Amistad, where, again, the Amistad was highlighted, the resilience and how it is so important that this story about the first, I would say, first globally known human trafficking story was brought to light.
Yeah, no, it was great conversation at noon to watch, and I enjoyed looking in on them. The state of Connecticut does indeed have a women's and minority trail that's actually administered by our very own Rena Wisniewski, who is the secretary for the Connecticut Freedom Trail. So if you have any other sites you want to add, you can reach out to her directly. But yeah, I mean, we added, Terry's site. That was the first one that we added this year.
Yeah.
The resting place of the in Avon of Leverett Holden from the 29th. So that kind of, again, we're learning more of these sites that should be recognized. And for our audience listening, if you guys have a site that you think may be eligible for listing on the Connecticut Freedom Trail, please reach out to Tammy or me to chat a little bit.
Yes, definitely. We would love to investigate it, because the more that we can bring exposure to Connecticut's history, the stronger it will be. So thank you very much for that, Todd. Let's move on to the next one. Then we had the conversation at noon where we got to speak with some scholars and authors. We have Joseph McGill of the Slave Dwelling Project. That was one of the most exciting ones. He was actually outside and he got to show us some of those slave dwellings that he actually works at the Magnolia Plantation in South Carolina, but he travels all over the country. And if I'm not mistaken, he's actually been out of the country as well, sleeping in slave dwellings, places where the enslaved had to sleep. And a lot of times they're buildings that people pass by every day and not understanding the magnitude of the presence of those buildings. And not only does he bring attention to them, but he's actually helped to keep many of them from being destroyed. So, and that is history that needs to be preserved. And he does a very good job of that. Joe and I have worked together for many years with the Hempstead houses for their Juneteenth event every year. The day before, that Friday, school is still in. So it's usually the week before Juneteenth, and school is still in. And we get to work with the fifth grade class in New London to give them a history lesson as our individual, because Joe is also a reenactor for a Civil War reenactor, and he dresses his role, and I portray Joan Jackson. And we actually interact with the fifth grade students, giving them a life lesson and what it's like to have lived during that time period. And we've had pretty good success over the years with that. And then we do the campfire in the evening, a community campfire. And also while I'm there during that weekend, we also get to give more educational information about the Freedom Trail. So it works out really well. Marcus Rediker, noted author and professor, he and I go back quite a few years, and he was kind enough to do the show for us. And his book, The Amistad Rebellion, it brings more humanity to the Amistad story. It wasn't just a legal case. He actually, and the Ghost of the Amistad, the movie, you can actually see that on YouTube, where you get to see him go into the village of the homes of the Mindy captives where they lived and the community. So his work is very important to the Amistad story as well. And then we have re-examining Connecticut's Prince Mortimer, where John Mills, our genealogist, John's bringing us a lot of work. He is very good at what he does. The Prince Mortimer story, he was the Prince Mortimer Trail within a trail was added last year, and John has been tirelessly doing more work behind the scenes, and we're going to have him on the show again to give us an update of what has been going on with Prince Mortimer. But just a quick tease, there's a possibility of a prominent street in Middletown being renamed Prince Mortimer after Prince Mortimer. So we're looking forward to hearing that as well.
Yeah, and I'll just add to the Prince Mortimer story in Middletown. One of the things we'll be doing there as well is another large-scale mural of Prince Mortimer. And that's also, as you noted, a great story. And one of the things that this reminds me of is bringing in Joe and Marcus and John to the conversations at noon is the importance of bringing folks in that we generally don't have an opportunity to show off or showcase and have them share their stories. Next year and the next 2 years as we go forward, one of our goals for the Freedom Trail is to bring in more nationally named folks to conversations at noon, and so that we can have a larger draw, so we can bring the attention of not only the stories of the Connecticut Freedom Trail, but also other African-American stories throughout the country to the spotlight.
Yeah, and we're hoping to do that in person, right? That we can start in person. That would be great.
Yeah, we've been doing the beauty and the problems with doing everything virtually is easy to do. In our living rooms or wherever, but there's something important about actually being with people.
Yeah.
And we've done this in the past at the old State House, and that's where I imagine we're going to continue to have these presentations that will then be open to the public as well.
Awesome. Looking forward to it. Next slide, please. Then we have the different sites that were added, and it was a site adding year for us. We added approximately 13 sites this year to the Freedom Trail in different parts of Connecticut. We have the New London Black Heritage Trail, which had 4 different sites. The Ichabod Pease House. Todd, help me out.
The Arthur Building, the Ichabod Pease House, the Sadie Dillon Harrison House, and the George and Sarah Fayweather House.
Yes. So, and there'll be more to come for the New London Black Heritage Trail, because many of their sites actually crisscrosses or coincides with the Freedom Trail. So we will be adding more at that location in New London. Then in New Haven, Todd worked tirelessly to get the armory put on, and we're hoping to add a couple more sites. But his hard work and diligent effort finally paid off, and we were able to get the New Haven armory put on. Todd, speak to that.
Yeah, so the New Haven Armory is a part of one of these trail within a trail stories that we've been working on, to have sites that come to the Freedom Trail have multiple sites if possible. And this is one of those sites. This was brought to our attention, a couple of years ago by a gentleman named Paul Hammer. And in his memory, we are continuing to pick up the mantle of listing these sites. And this is the first site that listed, and this is a Black Panther site.
Yes.
This is from the trials of the Black Panthers in New Haven. There was the fear that the Black Panther presence in the trials at the New Haven courthouse, which is another site that's going to be added to this trail within the trail for the Black Panthers, that there's going to be violence. So they brought in the National Guard, and the National Guard was housed at this armory in anticipation of violence at the New Haven Green and at the courthouse. Luckily in Connecticut, we didn't have any of that violence. And just 2 years later, the New Haven Armory became a place for a Black community gathering, right? So the Black community appropriated New Haven Armory a couple of years later and had these entrepreneur and cultural events there. So we went from really one side of a coin to another within 2 years. And that's one of the reasons why we're adding the site to the Connecticut Freedom Trail.
And then next, we have the Man Fortune's grave site, where we have Martin Bagnell, John Mills, myself, and Nicole Thomas. That was the day that Fortune was put onto the Freedom Trail, and it was a wonderful reception. That was a really good one. And then we have the Hartford Black Heroes Trail, where 3 of the sites were added. Mary Townsend Seymour, or Seymour Townsend. I get dyslexic with long names. We had a couple of more. I can't remember each.
Elia Brown, who was the first Black policewoman.
Yes.
Mary Townsend Seymour, who was the first Black woman to run it for state office in the nation, and co-founder of Hartford NAACP, and then Mary Johnson.
And Mary Johnson, yes.
And
Mary, I'm sorry.
And just so I'll just interject for a minute. The beauty of the Hartford Black Heroes Trail is that they're all on Main Street. So we'll get to why that's important in a couple of slides.
Yeah. With Mary, what I was going to bring out about Mary Townsend and Mary Johnson, they were Black suffragists. And we don't hear a lot about the Black suffragists, because when the suffragist story is told, it's usually, again, from one lens about Susan B. Anthony and others. But it is important to show the role that Connecticut played in the women's right to vote. And in 1919, there was a train load of Black women who came into Connecticut to be a part of the marching. And so that's another part of the trail that we like to talk about, because it's not that well known. So again, it is bringing acknowledgement to those hidden stories that we don't get to hear a lot about or know about, but yet it is very important that they exist. Then we go to the Reuben and Calvin Fletcher Museum, African American History Museum. That was another wonderful day. And this is where I wish we could blow this picture up a little. He's going to get me, but I wish we could blow this picture up a little bigger, where we could literally see him trying to hold the emotions back, because he was so surprised that he got that citation from Senator Blumenthal. And then our last edition for the year on the Freedom Trail was the New England Air Museum. They have a permanent theater exhibit for the Tuskegee Airmen, and they will be getting their flag and plaque. We're going to do the bigger ceremony in February for Black History Month, but they are our latest site added to the Connecticut Freedom Trail. So we are so happy that we were able to bring all of this acknowledgement to the Freedom Trail and this excitement, because there's a new energy, and we're going to keep it going for the upcoming year.
Yep, and one more site was added, was the Ham Primus House in Guilford.
Yes.
The other ones, but last one, the New England Air Museum and the Ham Primus in Guilford were our last one that were added in November. I don't think we have any on the agenda. Oh, we might though. for
Oh
this
no,
one.
we have some coming up. We have some coming up in January.
Yeah, we have Berlin and another one.
Yeah, we have the Berlin. I'm also investigating one in Old Saybrook. I won't say what it is just yet.
Ooh,
But yeah, I'm
surprise. All
investigating
right.
that. Yes, I am. And I think that will probably be one of the newer ones added in the earlier part of the year. So looking
Excellent.
forward to that. Let's see here. Marta Daniels says Marcus Rediker telling history from below, the Amistad story as told by those who emancipated themselves through rebellion. Thank you, everyone, for the Charles review. Marta, thank you very much. Marta is one of our tireless CFT members who is very dedicated to Judge Motley Baker, and she tirelessly does a lot to make sure she gets the recognition that her legacy is deserves. So thank you, Marta. We really appreciate you. And then we have Lisa Peterson. She says, remembering Earl Exum and his efforts for the Tuskegee Airmen exhibit. Yes, Mr. Earl Exum, he passed away a few months ago, which was very sad, but he put in a tireless effort to make sure the Tuskegee Airmen exhibit was put in place at the Air Museum. He played a big role in that. So thank you very much, Lisa, for bringing that acknowledgement to Mr. Exum.
I'll just add another shout out to Marta. You guys who travel around Connecticut may see once in a while a Connecticut Freedom Trail sign. And when I first got here as coordinator for the Connecticut Freedom Trail, the first thing I did is call DOT and be like, how do we get more signs out there? How do we get more presence on the highways and on the state-owned areas? And the answer was, well, we generally don't do that anymore. You have to be a really hard to reach place for them to even consider it. And Marta got her site added through just sheer force of will and diligence to make sure she went through all and learned the process that I couldn't figure out when I first started at the state 10 years ago to get signage. So she got state signage for those Connecticut Freedom Trail sites and showed us a blueprint for us to do it for other sites. So thank you, Marta, for that.
Yes, thank you. Thank you. All right, next slide, please. Then we had the meeting of the descendants. We got to meet Amina Merritt. She was here for the panel with Lieutenant Governor Bicevich, and she also did one of our presentations of hearing from the descendants. And then her cousin Susie actually made it to the gathering of the sites. Amina, I think, was in Africa, and that's why she was unable to make it. But her cousin Susie represented the Venture Smith descendants family aboard the Amistad. When I tell you the family, I got to meet the family not this past Venture Smith Day, but the last one. And I got to meet the 9th and I think 9th through the 11th generation of descendants. And what a large, proud, concise family. They were together and they were so proud of their legacy. And again, they helped us to further appreciate why it is so important to include the descendants in telling the narratives of their ancestors, because they have an insight that we could not have. They have oral stories. They have belongings that we couldn't possibly possess. So it was very important to make sure we include the descendants in the telling of these stories.
Yeah, and it's a part of their own personal history. So we were working with Deep to put a sign for a Venture Smith site, and both Amina and Susie were a part of that committee. And in fact, their input was instrumental in the language that we are working on. So thank you to Venture Smith's descendants and all the descendants who we've worked with, because again, not only is it's the Venture Smith or Grimes, their stories that we're trying to enhance, but it's these guys' personal stories that we are now a part of, and it's our responsibility to make sure that we are doing our job right and helping tell their story accurately and in the right way, with the right voice. So
Exactly. We have some comments here. Miss Patricia Moran says she's interested in the ceremony for the Tuskegee Airmen exhibit. How do I find out the date in February when this will occur? We will make the announcement through the Connecticut newsletter. We will also put it up on the website, so you'll be able to find it that way. Miss Marta Daniels, thank you so very much. It is Constance Baker Motley. For whatever reason, my dyslexia always kicks in when there is a 2 and 3 or hyphenated name. It will never change. For instance, Miss Paula Mann Agnew has often been Miss Agnew Mann. So it is not intentional. It's just dyslexia on my part. But thank you so very much for that correction, Miss Marta. I appreciate you. Let's go to the next slide. Now, this was exciting. We at the Connecticut Freedom Trail as a whole received the Ebenezer D. Bassett Black Governor's Award. Now, for those who do not know who Ebenezer Bassett is, he was our ambassador to Haiti. And he's a very important figure that is not often spoke about in history, but should be. And Mr. Professor William Fothergill is very tireless in making sure that his legacy lives on. There's a program at Central State Connecticut, Central State University in New Britain that helps students to pay for their schooling. And this program here was very special to be a part of. And so we thank you so very much, Professor Fothergill, for making sure that the Freedom Trail was acknowledged with this award. It is a beautiful glass award. And Todd and I are still trying to figure out the best place to place it so that it can be seen by the public and not somewhere collecting dust. So it is still housed very well in its beautiful box, but it will eventually see the day of light where all of the public will be able to see it. And I would like to thank Miss Patricia Gardner, who is a fellow CFT member with the AME Archer AME Church in Windsor. So thank you so much for being here to be a support of this as well.
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't there. I don't have much to say except, it's a beautiful award. I've seen it. And, William from CCSU, who hosted this event, wanted to recognize the Connecticut Freedom Trail. Particularly all the work that, Tammy, you've done this last couple of years has been great. I'm going to ask you a couple of questions and a couple of slides. But,
okay, no pressure.
We're going to flip the switch a little bit about who's in between.
Okay. Next slide, please. And here, this was a presentation at Center Church that was done in conjunction with the Wadsworth Athenaeum. And they were able to get Mr. Nathan Richardson to come out and do a presentation of Frederick Douglass. He travels all over the country reenacting Mr. Frederick Douglass. And when I tell you, the pictures do not do this justice. He really embodied what Frederick Douglass stood for. There were pictures where during the performance, he took children out of the audience and actually put them into his time period of Frederick Douglass and had them be a part of it. We didn't get permission to put those in the slides, so that's why the kids are not there. But these two kids from Middletown did such a wonderful job. They were mesmerized and they were captivated by the fact that they were having a discussion with Mr. Frederick Douglass. So this right here was just wonderful. Marty Lohman, thank you so very much. Another CFT member. We have Eric Hurst, who's also on the Freedom Trail with Center Church. That's Liza. I never pronounced the name correctly, so I'm not going to try. And then we have Andre Kitt, who is also on the Freedom Trail. So thank you, everyone, for coming out that day. And this is another thing that we on the Freedom Trail try to do. We try to promote and support each other as much as we possibly can. So when there's public events, different people from different parts of the Freedom Trail will come out and support each other so that the public can understand that we are a united trail and that we are focusing on making sure we tell a connective narrative or a consistent narrative of the history of the Black and African American communities here. Next. And then on the road, I often get to travel around the state and get to participate in different venues. Here I'm at the Hartford Business Day Expo that happens every May, June at the state capitol, where I get to meet with some of the representatives and I get to meet other local businesses and get to give people more history about the Freedom Trail and get them more interested. Here at the Farmers Market at the Old State House, I got to meet Connecticut's first Black National Park Ranger, Miss Pearl Wesley. That was a lot of fun. And it was a poignant day for me because I had my granddaughter with me. And it was really nice to introduce the two of them and so that she could see history in the making, and not only see it in the making, but actually meet her. And so when she gets older, this will be something that resonates with her. So that was a beautiful and special day that day. And also, we had interns that has been helping us out. One of the things that we're doing on the Freedom Trail is making sure we get a connective narrative that connects all of the sites throughout the trail. So even though they're individual sites, whenever you visit one, you will still see that connective theme of the Connecticut Freedom Trail. And so we have interns that have been helping us out. And earlier this year, Noah Webster had received a community grant that talked about helping other sites tell their history about colonial history, but including the enslavement of those who were here in Connecticut, which oftentimes sites tend to leave that part out. But the interns did a wonderful research job. It was Michael Sawyer, Joy Lee. There's a couple of others. I am so sorry, I cannot remember their names right now, but they dug so deep into Connecticut's history, and we've come up with all of this wonderful information that will soon make a presence on the Freedom Trail. So thank all four of you for the work that you did. And then the other place that I went and I spoke of earlier was the outreach at Juneteenth at the Hempstead houses. We have a table there, and we get to tell the public more about the Freedom Trail.
Yeah, so you're on the road a lot this year. This was the year, except for the inception of the Freedom Trail in 1995 and 1996, when we added 60 sites. This year we had 13, so more than any other year since the inception. So nice work, Tammy. Nice
Thank you. Andre Kidd wants to bring to our attention that Liza is the Reverend and the senior pastor. Dr. Eric Hurst is the director of faith formation and social justice at the Center Church. And he brings out how the church reluctantly hosted Frederick Douglass, as well as founded the capital city of Hartford. Yes, that is a sad note that they try not to talk about too much, but it's part of history and it should be known. Frederick was invited to speak there, but the members of the church did not want him inside. So he ended up doing his speech out on the footsteps. And he writes about it, how he was treated in his memoirs. He talks about the treatment he received in Hartford and Meriden, Connecticut. And it is not a nice review that he puts in his memoir, but he was not treated well. Thank you for that, Andre. All right, let's move on. Then a part of what we do at the Connecticut Freedom Trail was in conjunction with SHPO, the state Historic Preservation Office, was we tried to get information out into the communities about the tax preservation if you own a historical home, and how this program could help with that. And Todd, I'll let you go into more detail.
Yeah, so the State Historic Preservation Office has a program called the Historic Home Tax Credit. And if your site is on the state or national register for historic places, and you do eligible work to, fix up your home, you can get some money back. It could be either, actually the law just changed. So right now it's up to $30,000, which is up to 30% of your eligible work, up to 30 grand per unit. And it'll be, written off towards your taxes, and whatever taxes above and beyond that money, you'll just get a check at the end. So it's a great opportunity to do work to your historic house that you would not necessarily have the money to do. So you have this opportunity to take advantage of a program that the State Historic Preservation Office has to help support historic preservation. And what we want to do, and what we've been doing with this partnership with Tammy Denease and the Connecticut Old State House, is to get the opportunities of things like the Connecticut Historic Home Tax Credit out to underrepresented communities. So a lot of folks just don't know that this opportunity is there, and we're taking the mantle of getting the word out to as many folks in Connecticut that can take advantage of this. And here we are right here in Hartford. We had blanketed the Upper Albany Avenue neighborhood, which has something like 300 homes that are potentially eligible for this program. So our goal is next year to do 2 or 3.
Yes. And that was exciting for me because I got to go out into the neighborhoods. And as I was leaving the flyers, I got to see some people working in their yards. I knocked on doors. I got to talk to the community and to give them more information about the Freedom Trail as well as the tax preservation, because a lot of them didn't realize what the Freedom Trail was about either. So I really do enjoy the work that I do. It is a passion that I truly love, talking about history, but also getting to know my neighbors a little bit more. So that was a lot of fun. Nicole says it was amazing work, Tammy. Oh, thank you, Nicole. I appreciate that. She says we've highlighted the visibility of Connecticut as a whole for Black history. Let the world tell it we had no slavery or prosperous history in Connecticut. The trail visibility is a huge bonus, and she's so excited to work alongside us. Well, thank you, Nicole. I enjoy working with you. You as a historian that has taken hold of the reins in New London and helping with that heritage trail and doing some of your own genealogy, you do great work as well. And it is a bonus to have you on the trail and also to call your friends. So thank you very much. Next slide. Then we're going to talk about the Connecticut Freedom Trail website. I will let you handle this one, Todd.
Yeah, so this has been a long time coming. We've been working towards updating and launching our new website. We actually have a meeting today at 2:00, hopefully for the last bit of bug edits. We had hoped to launch it in September for Connecticut Freedom Trail Month, but there was some technical difficulties. But hopefully today at 2:00. We'll have the final, and then we're partnering with Connecticut Humanities, who will be hosting the site for us, because of their educational websites that they have. This makes a lot of sense to work with them and have them be the host so that folks can actually cross-reference some of their websites with our website. But our goal will be to, by the end of the year, have that go live. So we're just going to say now, January 1st, ctfreedomtrail.org will be live. It'll probably be live before then. But for everybody to know, that's when we're officially saying it's going to be live. It will be the clearinghouse for all things Connecticut Freedom Trail. Yes. So all 170 sites will be on there with all the information that we have, including the nominations, backup data, supporting data, empirical evidence, all the things that got those sites listed. All that data will be a fingertip away, as well as all the other, manuscripts and books that the Connecticut Freedom Trail and the Amistad Committee had sponsored over, since 1995. We're going to have all that stuff on the website. We'll have an educational page. It'll have things like, work plans and workbooks, like bringing the Connecticut Freedom Trail to life through the arts. We'll have all of our programs that we've done, including all of our minutes from our meetings, on this website. So starting January 1st, 2024, come visit the website. It'll also have all of our events. Yes. So all the events that all the participating sites have will be listed on the website. So this should be your one stop to see what's going on in the state of Connecticut for the Connecticut Freedom Trail. So we're very excited.
Don't forget, it's interactive. There's going to be an interactive map as well. There'll be videos greeting you, helping you to get through the website. So I'm really excited for the public to see what we have been seeing behind the scenes. That's going to be exciting. Sally Whipple says the CFT celebration of the Amistad was a perfect way to bring people together from all across the state. Yes, it was, Sally. It was a great day. We had a wonderful time. And Nicole Thomas says it was a beautiful day and she can't wait to do it again. All right, let's move on to our next, the Pomeroy Foundation markers. Now, this is something that's very important to bring to the public's attention.
Yep. So we've been working with Pomeroy Foundation for the last over a year to work with them for their marker program, and we just got awarded earlier this week on Monday that we are going to be actually placing 20 of these beautiful big markers across the state for the Connecticut Freedom Trail in 10 municipalities. And they're going to be things like, the Hartford Heroes Trail, which is all on a linear street, all on Main Street. There'll be one sign like this entering, one sign, entering from the other side. And it'll also include sites like New Haven, Farmington, New London. It's going to be a number of these areas that are kind of our trail within a trail. So, and the beauty of these signs is this is an example of one of the signs, but what we want the signs is actually to tell a little bit of the story.
Yes.
So, right now, when you see our plaques, which are like 6 inches long, they're bronze, they're beautiful. And our flag, the site's on the Freedom Trail, but you don't know why it's on the Freedom Trail.
Right.
This program is going to actually tell a little bit about why that site or this area is on the Connecticut Freedom Trail. One of the Pomeroy Foundation's goals is for people to pull over when they're driving and they see a site and learn a little bit about it. So we're pretty excited to be a part of it. Again, we just found out on Monday, Jonathan Kinney, the SHPO, State Historic Preservation Officer, and I applied for it, and we're really excited. And that will launch next year.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Again, one of your tireless efforts, Todd. Thank you so very much. All right, let's go on to our next. And this is actually the end of our slideshow. We started with the party and we plan to end with it. This is a beautiful picture of everyone who showed up for the event. I don't think everyone's in the picture because it doesn't seem like everyone. No. Yeah, it doesn't look like it, but it was still just a beautiful day. The great food. It had rained really hard earlier in the day, but the rain had went away, and you can see how the sun is glistening in the background. It turned out to be a beautiful day, and it just made this year, it just culminated for the year of how important the Freedom Trail is and the dedication that the CFT members have to making the Freedom Trail much more visible, giving it the life and energy that it needs. And although I'm the face of the Freedom Trail, thanks to you, Todd, and I travel throughout the state, I can't do it by myself. It is all of these people here. It is so many behind the scenes, Mariana Garcia, Sally Whipple, Andre Kitt, John Mills, Jeffrey Fletcher, Todd. It's just so many others that I have to call on often to show up at these different places. And at the drop of a dime, you guys are there for me. So I appreciate that. It's a team effort. It's a group effort. And as the trail continues to grow, the support will be there as well. So thank you, Todd, for all that you have done over the years for the Freedom Trail. It is very important and noteworthy to know the work that you've done as well. So thank you.
Well, thank you. And I know we're over time, but I did want to ask you, what was your favorite thing this last year on the Connecticut Freedom Trail? I know you're not prepped for this, but what was your favorite thing to do? What was your favorite? Tell us a little bit about what was the favorite thing that you do or you have done this last year on the Freedom Trail.
Oh, wow. I still have to say getting out into the community, meeting the different people and bringing the light to the Freedom Trail, because it's very important that this trail exists. But again, not everyone knows what the Freedom Trail is and what it's about. They'll say, oh, I've seen the sign and I've wondered. And it's important that they see that signage, but it's also important that they go beyond seeing the sign, that they get behind the story, that they get behind it. So that would be, I think the most important thing is getting out into the community and talking to everyone. And I was very excited to be a part of helping the first African-American museum in Connecticut get on the Freedom Trail. That was really huge. The Tuskegee Airmen exhibit, that was really huge because I've had ties with the New England Air Museum for years. And that exhibit is so very important because we have living Tuskegee Airmen right here in Connecticut. And to see that exhibit and to have them get onto the Freedom Trail to bring even more exposure to that, to what their legacy is, that too. So I have several things, but I would have to say still getting out into the community is a big one for me.
Yeah, awesome. And you do such a great job, and we couldn't do any of this stuff without you, Tammy. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much for the support and helping me to do what I love to do. So thank you so much, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us again for the year in review. It has been an exciting year. It's been a year that has gone by quickly, and sometimes I think I'm not doing enough, but when we do the review and we get to see all of the things that have happened, I realize I do a lot, but it's still a lot to be done. and I enjoy it. So thank you all very much for joining us. Thank you for participating in the show with your comments. That is much appreciated. We have a nice lineup coming up starting in January 23rd on the Freedom Trail. Conversations at noon. We're going to have the Black Heritage Project at the Connecticut State Community Capital College with Dr. Frank Mitchell, Professor Antoinette Brembell, and Dr. Duncan Harris. Thank you all so much for wanting to do that program. Tuesday, February 27th, we will have Belinda Royal Sutton, Reparations Then and Now by Professor Raymond Wimbush. I have a personal connection to that story that I'll tell you about in February. And then Tuesday, March 26th, 2020. These are all 2024, although they say 23. These are for all 2024. We will have The Life of Private William Webb with my good friend Kevin Johnson. So we have more exciting programs coming up. We have people from all over the country doing conversations at noon. And again, as always, if there's something you want to hear or you want us to talk about on Conversations at Noon, please put it into the survey. Let us know how we're doing. Let us know what you want to hear. And again, everyone, thank you so very much for the support throughout the year. So until the next time. Yes!